You've seen that building the doors is really easy. What can be intimidating though is actually mounting the doors to your project. There are lots of kinds of hinges available and it can be tough to sort through all the choices. Plus, installing the hinges correctly really scares people because if you don't, the doors won't work or fit properly. But once again, it doesn't have to be hard if you go about it the right way. On this project, we used concealed hinges. They fit in behind the door, and what's nice is they don't show once the door is installed. Plus, they're adjustable and they work really well. They can be challenging to install though because they have to fit into a deep hole that you drill in the back of the door, and you need to position them correctly to make sure that they're straight and that the door will fit right. Thankfully, there's an option that makes it easier, once again with a jig. A concealed hinge jig guides a drill bit that will allow you to drill that hole straight and accurately to the right depth without needing a drill press or other fancy tools. It's really easy to use. It sets the right offset so that you know that the hinge will be located the correct distance in, and it has a measuring scale so you can determine how far from the end you want your hinge to be. Usually 2 to 3 inches from the end is fine. So just position the jig and clamp it down. At the same time, I'm clamping the door to the work surface so it won't move around. Then put the bit in your drill. When you lock the guide into the jig, it holds everything in place and ensures that you'll drill straight and to the right depth. So it's really easy to drill that large hole, but you also need 2 holes for the screws that'll mount the hinge. So you can drill those at the same time. Now, just pop the jig off and move to the other end of the door. Once again, going 3 inches from the end and clamping the jig to the door and the door to the work surface. Don't forget to do those hinge holes for the mounting screws. So, though it looked messy while it was being done, look at that. Perfectly clean hole for the hinge cup and properly positioned holes for the mounting screws. Now I know the hinges will drop in just the right place, and I'll be able to mount it to the cabinet successfully. It'll fit right and work right. So with the hinges installed, I'm ready to hang my doors. Mounting the hinges onto the doors is half the job. The other half is mounting the doors onto your project. There's no jig for this, but there are some tips that'll make it easier. These hinges mount on the edge of the face frame, and the doors overhang the opening, in this case, by a ½ inch at the top and the bottom. So I'm going to take the multi-mark, set to a ½ inch, and just make a reference mark here. Doesn't even have to be perfect. I'm just going to use it to eyeball the location. So now I can hold the door in place and line it up with that ½ inch mark. There's adjustment built into the hinges, so I don't have to worry about getting it exact. Make sure it's in place, and I'll mark locations for pilot holes for the hinge mounting screws. And then I can drill the pilot holes. Now bring the door into place. Get around where I can see that hole. I like to get both screws kind of started. Get myself approximately lined up, and then drive the screws in. Raise this one just a hair. And that gets the basic installation done. You can see that the door swings just like it's supposed to, and it sits nice and straight. So with that done, you can move on and mount the second door. So when I close the doors, yep, you can see there's some difference in the height here. This one's sitting a little bit low. That's okay though, because there's adjustment built into the hinges. You just open the door and loosen the mounting screws, and then slide this one up and tighten it back down. May have to move this door down just a little bit as well. Now everything's nice and even there. The thing I love about these hinges is not only can you adjust the position of the mounting screws, but there are additional adjustments like this one that sets how far in or out the door sits, and this one that adjusts how close or far away it sits from the cabinet. So with all those adjustments, you can really fine-tune your doors and make them fit great. With the doors installed, there's just one last piece of hardware to add, and that's the decorative knobs or pulls that you're going to use. Should be easy since it's just drill a hole and mount the knob, but this part can still be intimidating because this is the hardware that shows, and if it's positioned wrong, it's going to throw off the look of your project. Now, we're going to go ahead and install it now on the unfinished cabinet. That's a great tip for building. I like to get all the hardware installed, drill the holes and everything before I stain and finish. That way I can sand out any rough spots, and then I don't have to worry about messing up my finished project. So to install the knob, you need to make sure that it's centered on the width of the stile, and then decide how far up or down you want to locate it. If you're not centering it, a good choice is to put it right in line with the lower edge of this rail. So if I had to mark all of that out by hand and try to drill that hole, that'd be tough, especially when I need to repeat it on the other side. Thankfully, once again, there's a jig. This cabinet hardware jig has a drill guide to drill a straight hole, plus it has measuring scales and a fence built in. So I've set that fence to position the hole half the distance across the stile, and I can use the measuring scale and the centering mark to line it right up with the bottom edge of the rail. Then all I have to do is clamp it in place and drill the hole. Now, it's a nice straight hole. It's positioned just where I want it. And you can see that when I install the knob, it's in just the right place. Great, but now I need to do the exact same thing over here. Once again, with the jig, it's no problem because all the measurements are set. Put the fence against the edge, set the 0 mark, and clamp it down. This is the kind of rough spot on the back of the hole here that I'm talking about that I'll sand all of it out before I apply the finish. But for now, put the mounting screw in, and spin on the knob, and you can see those are perfectly aligned and ready to go.